The quantum comm array hummed quietly in Lab 7 of the Titan Research Station, its holographic displays casting a soft blue glow across Dr. Sarah Chin's face as she studied the latest signal patterns. 3 years of analyzing deep space transmissions had taught her to trust her instincts, and something about this particular sequence made her scalp prickle. Kai, run comparative analysis against the Helios dataset, she commanded, her eyes never leaving the stream of data. The lab's AI responded by projecting a new set of waveforms alongside the original signal. Match found at 97.3% confidence, Kai announced. Similar patterns detected in transmissions from the Carina Nebula sector. Sarah straightened in her chair, fatigue forgotten. This was the 4th correlation this week, each from a different sector of space, each carrying the same underlying mathematical signature. It wasn't random noise, as the Veskari Empire scientists had so confidently declared during last month's Galactic Collective Assembly. Plot all confirmed patterns on the galactic map, she ordered, rising to get a better view as the holographic display shifted to show the Milky Way. Red dots appeared, marking each signal's origin. As they blinked into existence, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. They formed a perfect arc. Dr. Chen, the voice of her research partner, Dr. Marcus Wong, came from the doorway. It's nearly 300 station time. You should really. He stopped mid-sentence, seeing the map. Is that what I think it is? If you're thinking it's proof that we're not chasing shadows, then yes. Sarah gestured at the display. These signals aren't background radiation or stellar noise. They're markers, Marcus. Warning signs. Marcus moved closer, his expression thoughtful. At 58, he'd seen enough scientific breakthroughs to know when to get excited and when to be cautious. The Veskari won't like this. They've already invested too much in their harvester projects to back down now. The Veskari, Sarah said, pulling up another dataset, have been wrong before. Remember the Proxima incident? If humanity hadn't insisted on additional safety protocols. That was different, Marcus interrupted. We had concrete evidence then. This is, he gestured at the displays, theoretical. Sarah shook her head, bringing up a new window filled with complex equations. Not theoretical. Look at the decay patterns in the quantum signatures. These markers were left by something that understood 11-dimensional spacetime at a fundamental level. The mathematical proofs are elegant, precise, and completely beyond current collective science, Marcus finished. Which is exactly why they won't believe us. We're the newcomers, Sarah, barely 3 decades into faster-than-light travel, while the Veskari have been crossing galaxies for millennia. Then they should know better than to ignore warnings just because they don't like the messenger. Sarah began compiling the data into a formal report. The patterns are clear. These signals mark locations where spacetime itself has been altered. The Veskari's energy harvesting stations could trigger a cascade reaction. Marcus watched her work in silence for a moment. The assembly meets in 2 days. You're going to present this, aren't you? Someone has to. Sarah's fingers flew over the holographic interface. Humanity may be young by collective standards, but we haven't survived this long by ignoring patterns. Every extinction-level event in Earth's history has taught us something. The dinosaurs couldn't read the warning signs of an approaching asteroid. We can read these. And if they don't listen. Sarah paused, looking up at the galactic map where the red markers continued their silent vigil. Then we prepare, because whatever left these markers understood something about the universe that the collective doesn't. And they went to a lot of trouble to warn others away. She stood, stretching muscles stiff from hours of work. Get some rest, Marcus. Tomorrow we need to prepare our presentation. The collective needs to understand that being technologically advanced doesn't make you infallible. Sometimes, the most important insights come from those who still remember what it's like to be vulnerable. As Marcus left, Sarah turned back to the displays. The markers pulsed quietly, their message clear to anyone willing to see it. Danger lies here. She thought about Earth's history, about all the times humanity had faced extinction and survived by learning, adapting, and most importantly, heeding warnings. Kai, she said softly, begin compiling historical data on all known space-time anomalies recorded by the collective. Cross-reference with our marker locations. Processing. The AI responded. Estimated completion time. 6 hours. Sarah nodded, settling back into her chair. 6 hours until the next piece of evidence. 2 days until the assembly. And somewhere out in the void, ancient markers continued their vigilant broadcast, waiting for someone wise enough to listen. In her mind, she was already composing her speech to the assembly. The Veskari would scoff, the Centaurians would theorize, and the Nixians would watch in silence as they always did. But humanity had earned its place among the stars by understanding something the older races had forgotten. True wisdom lies not in knowing everything, but in remembering how much there is left to learn. The quantum comm array hummed on, its displays showing the dance of signals across space and time. And in Lab 7 of the Titan Research Station, Dr. Sarah Chen prepared to challenge the assumptions of a galaxy. The grand chamber of the Galactic Collective stretched upward in elegant spirals of crystalline architecture, its transparent walls showing the stars beyond New Geneva Station. Representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations filled the tiered seating, their forms ranging from the towering, silicon-based Veskari to the ethereal, light-based consciousness of the photonic confluence. Sarah stood at the presentation podium, her data already loaded into the chamber's holographic systems. Behind her, Earth's delegation sat quietly, including Marcus Wong and Ambassador Helena Rodriguez. Before her, First Speaker Veskar of the Veskari Empire studied her with compound eyes that reflected the chamber's ambient light. Dr. Chen. Veskar's translated voice carried a hint of amusement. You claim these signals represent a warning from an advanced civilization, yet you offer no proof of their origin, no artifacts, no technological remnants, simply mathematical patterns that could easily be explained by natural phenomena. Sarah activated the main display, showing the galactic map with its arc of warning signals. With respect, First Speaker, these patterns demonstrate an understanding of quantum mechanics far beyond our current knowledge. The mathematical precision is impressive, interrupted Council Member Ixel of the Centaurian Worlds, his crystalline form refracting light as he spoke. But correlation does not imply causation. The Veskari Empire has successfully harvested quantum energy from space-time anomalies for centuries. On a much smaller scale, Sarah countered. She brought up a new display showing energy readings. The Veskari's new harvesting initiative plans to tap into anomalies 1,000 times more powerful than anything previously attempted. These markers appear specifically around similar high-energy regions. A whisper of movement rippled through the chamber as a Nixian elder floated forward. The ancient race rarely spoke at assemblies, preferring to observe. Their gas cloud bodies contained clusters of neural matter that glowed softly as they thought. The human speaks truth about patterns. The Nixian's thoughts translated directly into comprehensible speech. We have observed similar mathematical sequences in our historical records, though we never decoded their significance. First Speaker Veskar's mandibles clicked in irritation. The Nixians' passive observation of the galaxy is well known. Had they chosen to advance their technology rather than merely watch, perhaps they would understand these are simply natural phenomena waiting to be harnessed. Sarah felt a surge of frustration. Natural phenomena don't arrange themselves in perfect mathematical sequences across thousands of light years. These markers show signs of artificial manipulation at the quantum level. They're like buoys in space, warning ships away from dangerous waters. An eloquent metaphor, Veskar replied. But the Veskari Empire does not navigate by human superstitions. Our science has proven these anomalies can be safely contained and harvested. The energy they will provide will transform the collective. Or destroy it, Sarah said firmly. She brought up a new simulation. Our models show a 68% chance that attempting to harvest these anomalies will trigger a cascade effect in local spacetime. The marker's placement suggests whoever left them understood this risk. Council member Ixel's crystalline form sparkled with what might have been amusement. Models based on human understanding of physics, which, forgive me, Dr. Chen, is still rather primitive by collective standards. Ambassador Rodriguez stood then, her voice cutting through the murmurs. Humanity's primitive understanding once saved this collective from disaster. Or have we forgotten the Proxima incident so quickly? A tense silence fell over the chamber. The Proxima incident had proved that even the most advanced races could make catastrophic mistakes. Human safety protocols, dismissed at first as overcautious, had prevented a disaster that could have destabilized an entire sector. That was one incident, Veskar said carefully, and the circumstances were entirely different. The Empire's harvesting technology has been thoroughly tested. On smaller anomalies, Sarah interrupted. She highlighted specific data points in her display. These energy readings are unprecedented. The markers show signs of quantum entanglement across vast distances. If one harvesting attempt goes wrong, it could trigger a chain reaction through all the marked locations. The Nixian Elder pulsed with agreement. We have observed similar patterns before great cosmic events. The human's caution is warranted. But Sarah could see she was losing the chamber's attention. The Veskari delegation was already conferring among themselves, their translated whispers suggesting they were merely waiting for this presentation to end. The Centaurians had begun their characteristic shimmer of dismissal. The Empire's harvest will proceed as planned, Veskar announced. We thank Earth's delegation for their concerns, but the collective cannot halt progress based on theoretical warnings from unproven sources. Sarah looked up at the vast chamber, at the representatives of civilizations that had mastered the stars while humanity was still learning to make fire. But in their very mastery, they'd lost something. The ability to consider that they might be wrong. The wisdom to listen to warnings. Then at least allow us to monitor the harvest attempts, she said. Let us position our sensors at a safe distance. If we're wrong, you lose nothing. If we're right, you might save lives. Veskar paused, compound eye shifting. You may observe from a distance of no less than 2 light years. Will that satisfy human caution? Sarah nodded slowly, though her stomach churned. 2 light years might not be far enough if her calculations were correct. But it was something. A chance to gather data, to prepare if the worst happened. As the chamber began to empty, the Nixian Elder drifted closer to her. The young sometimes see what the old have forgotten to look for, it communicated. We will assist in your monitoring efforts. Sarah gathered her data tablets, watching the Veskari delegation depart. They moved with the confidence of beings who had never faced true extinction, who had never had to claw their way back from the brink of annihilation. Humanity knew better. They had learned from every near-death experience, every close call with oblivion. And now, watching the stars through the chamber's crystal walls, Sarah Chen prepared to document either humanity's greatest vindication or the collective's greatest mistake. She just hoped they'd be alive to learn from it. Deep in the observation deck of the research vessel Cassini, Sarah Chen watched the massive Veskari harvesting fleet move into position around the nearest quantum anomaly. Even from 2 light years away, the scale of their operation was breathtaking. 12 capital ships, each larger than Earth's largest space station, arranged themselves in a precise geometric pattern around the invisible distortion in spacetime. Energy readings are already off the charts, Marcus reported from his station. The anomaly's quantum signature is changing just from their presence. The Nixian Elder, who had introduced itself as First Light at dawn, pulsed with concern beside them. The patterns grow stronger. The markers pulse in ways we have never observed. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing real-time data from their quantum sensors. The mathematical sequences they'd discovered were changing, becoming more complex, more urgent, like warning bells ringing faster as danger approached. Kai, cross-reference these new patterns with all known mathematical sequences in our database, she commanded. Processing. The AI responded. Match found in deep archaeology records. Similar mathematical progressions appeared in data recovered from Earth's Chicxulub crater, moments before the impact that ended the Cretaceous period. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. "They're not just warning markers," she whispered. "They're countdown sequences." First light at dawn's neural clusters flared. The ancients who left these signs, they understood extinction events. They knew the patterns that precede them. The comm system crackled with a transmission from the Veskari fleet. Harvesting operation commencing in 10 minutes. All observation vessels maintain safe distance. Sarah's fingers flew over her console, running new simulations with the updated data. The results made her blood run cold. "Marcus, contact the Veskari command immediately. The markers aren't just warnings about the anomalies. They're part of a containment system. If they disrupt it..." A burst of static cut through the ship's systems. The quantum sensors screamed with data as the Veskari ships activated their harvesting beams, reaching into the heart of the anomaly with tendrils of exotic energy. For a moment, everything seemed to work as the Veskari had planned. The anomaly's energy began flowing into their containment systems, a river of pure quantum potential. But then the markers started to pulse in perfect synchronization across the galaxy. "The other anomalies are responding," Marcus reported, his voice tense. "They're all connected, just as we theorized." "Veskari command, abort the harvest immediately," Sarah transmitted. "The markers are part of an ancient containment grid. You're not just harvesting energy, you're dismantling a safety system that's been in place for millions of years." First light at dawn's form expanded in alarm. The patterns, they speak of endings, of barriers between dimensions weakening. On the main display, the Veskari ship's harvesting beams began to fluctuate. The anomaly's edges blurred, its quantum signature becoming increasingly chaotic. Warning alerts flashed across every console as space itself began to warp around the harvesting zone. "They've triggered a cascade," Sarah realized. "Kai, show me the marker network across the galaxy." The display shifted, showing hundreds of warning markers now pulsing in a complex rhythm. Each pulse sent ripples through space-time, like stones dropped in a cosmic pond. Where the ripples intersected, reality itself seemed to shimmer. "Veskari command, your harvesting operation is destabilizing the entire network," Sarah transmitted again. "Whatever the ancients were containing with this system, you're about to release it." This time, there was a response. "Human vessel, our systems are. Something is emerging from the anomaly. Our containment fields are." The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Through the observation windows, Sarah watched in horror as space itself seemed to tear open around the Veskari fleet. Something moved in that tear, something that existed in more dimensions than human eyes could process. The capital ships, massive as they were, looked like toys before it. "All vessels, emergency withdrawal." The Veskari command's transmission was panicked now. "The anomaly is. It's not just energy. There's something, intelligence, patterns we can't." First light at dawn's neural clusters pulsed rapidly. The ancients did not leave these markers as warnings about places. They left them as warnings about prisoners, about things they could not destroy, only contain. Sarah's mind raced. The mathematics in the markers, the precise positioning across the galaxy. It wasn't just a warning system. It was a prison. A prison for something that existed beyond normal space-time, something the ancients had fought and barely managed to contain. "Kai, send all our data to Earth and the collective immediately," she ordered, "and begin analyzing those containment patterns. If the ancients built this prison, there has to be a way to repair it." As the Cassini's engines powered up for emergency withdrawal, Sarah watched the Veskari fleet struggling against forces they never believed existed. Humanity's warning had been ignored, but perhaps their understanding of the markers might still save the galaxy, if they survived long enough to implement it. The question was, had the Veskari's arrogance doomed them all, or would humanity's hard-earned wisdom about heeding warnings help them find a solution before whatever the ancients had imprisoned broke free completely? The emergency session of the Galactic Collective, had none of its usual ceremonial grace. Representatives huddled around displays showing the spreading catastrophe, their previous rivalries forgotten in the face of an existential threat. The Veskari fleet's destruction had been just the beginning. Sarah stood before them again, but this time there was no skepticism in the chamber. Behind her, a holographic display showed the cascading failure of the ancient containment grid across the galaxy. Every few minutes, another marker would flash red as its local space-time barrier weakened. The entities the ancients imprisoned exist in 11 dimensions, Sarah explained, her voice steadied despite her exhaustion. Our three-dimensional understanding of reality is as limited to them as a flat photograph would be to us. The Veskari's attempt to harvest their containment system has created tears in space-time itself. First Speaker Veskar, his previous arrogance shattered by the loss of his fleet, spoke quietly. How long do we have? At the current rate of degradation, Sarah brought up a new simulation, 72 hours before the entire containment grid fails. Once that happens, she didn't need to finish. They'd all seen the footage from the first breach. These beings, a Centaurian representative asked, why did the ancients imprison them rather than destroy them? And now we've damaged their prison. Marcus added from his position at a data console. But the markers contain more than warnings. They're also instructions. Sarah nodded, bringing up the complex mathematical sequences they decoded. The ancients left us a manual for repairing the containment grid, but it requires technology we don't have, understanding we haven't achieved. Then we are doomed. Veskar interrupted, his compound eyes reflecting the red warning lights from the display. No, Sarah's voice cut through the chamber's despair. We don't need to understand everything the ancients knew. We just need to understand enough to adapt their solution to our current technology. She brought up a new display showing the quantum signature of the containment grid. The ancients used 11-dimensional engineering to build this prison. We can't replicate that. But humanity's greatest strength has never been our technology. It's been our ability to find unconventional solutions. The barriers between dimensions are like a fabric, she continued, highlighting specific points in the data. The ancients wove it perfectly, but we don't need perfection. We just need to patch the tears before they spread too far. How? The question came from multiple representatives at once. Sarah gestured, and the display changed to show a familiar sight to the human delegates, a simple needle and thread. In human history, when we couldn't build something new, we learned to repair what we had. The containment grid is failing because its quantum threads are unraveling. We can't recreate the ancients' work, but we can stitch the existing fabric back together. She brought up a schematic of modified Veskari quantum harvesters. Their technology tried to extract energy from the grid, but if we reverse the process, use the harvesters to reinforce the existing quantum fields instead of draining them. A simple solution. First light at dawn, pulsed thoughtfully, using existing technology in a way its creators never imagined. Like using a sword as a bridge support. Understanding dawned across the chamber. The Veskari's advanced technology, combined with humanity's innovative approach and the Nixians' deep understanding of the markers, might offer a chance. It will require precise coordination, Sarah continued. Every spacefaring race working together. We'll need ships positioned at each weakening marker, all acting in perfect synchronization to reinforce the quantum barriers before they fail completely. The largest cooperative effort in collective history, Ambassador Rodriguez noted, and we have less than 72 hours to organize it. The chamber erupted in activity as representatives began coordinating their fleets. The Veskari, their pride forgotten in the face of survival, immediately offered their remaining harvesters. The Centaurians' crystalline ships, perfect for channeling quantum energy, would be crucial. Sarah turned to Marcus and First Light at dawn. Kai, begin transmitting the modified harvester specifications to all collective shipyards. We'll need every ship we can get. As the chamber buzzed with urgent preparation, Sarah studied the galactic display. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through technological superiority, but through bitter experience. They knew that survival often depended not on having the best tools, but on finding new ways to use the tools you had. Now that wisdom might save not just humanity, but all intelligent life in the galaxy, if they could repair the ancients' prison in time. The countdown continued, and somewhere in the quantum darkness, imprisoned entities stirred, testing the weakening barriers of their ancient cage. The view from the Cassini's observation deck showed a sight unprecedented in galactic history. Thousands of ships from hundreds of civilizations hung in precise formation around each weakening marker, their hulls modified with retrofitted quantum reinforcement arrays. Sarah's simple solution: using modified harvesting technology to strengthen rather than extract energy, had been implemented across the fleet in less than 60 hours. Final systems check complete, Marcus reported from his station. All ships report ready. Quantum synchronization at 99.8% across the network. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing all active markers across the galaxy. More than half now pulsed an angry red, the ancient prison straining at its foundations. Through the tears in spacetime, shadows moved, things that should not exist in normal space. Time to containment grid failure, she asked. 37 minutes, Kai responded. Dimensional barriers continuing to degrade. First light at dawn's neural clusters pulsed with focused intensity. The marker's language has changed. They no longer speak of warning. Now they speak of ending, or beginning. The choice approaches. Sarah took a deep breath. Everything depended on precise timing and coordination. One ship out of position, one quantum pulse mistimed, and the entire effort would fail. The modified harvesters had to activate in perfect sequence, following the mathematical patterns they decoded from the markers. All ships, final positions, she transmitted across the fleet-wide network. Prepare for synchronized activation on my mark. The collective's combined fleet moved with graceful precision. Veskari dreadnoughts aligned with Centaurian crystal ships, human vessels positioned alongside Nixian Orcs. Previous rivalries and hierarchies forgotten in the face of extinction. 20 minutes to grid failure, Kai announced. Dimensional breaches expanding at all marked locations. Through the observation windows, Sarah could see the space-time distortions growing. Reality itself seemed to fold and unfold, geometric patterns impossible for human minds to fully comprehend flowering in the void. And through those patterns, vast shapes moved, testing their weakening prison. They're becoming more active, first light at dawn observed. They sense freedom approaching. A transmission cut through the tense silence, from first speaker Veskar himself. Dr. Chen, humanity's warning was correct, and we were wrong to dismiss it. Whatever happens next, the collective will remember. Let's make sure there's a collective left to remember, Sarah replied. All ships, power up quantum reinforcement arrays. Begin final countdown. Energy readings spiked across the fleet as thousands of modified harvesters hummed to life. The mathematical sequence that would guide their activation was displayed on every ship's command console, humanity's simple solution to an 11-dimensional problem. Grid failure in 10 minutes, Kai reported. Dimensional breaches critical. Sarah watched the numbers tick down, each second bringing them closer to either salvation or extinction. The entities imprisoned by the ancients were fully awake now, their movements visible even to three-dimensional eyes as space itself writhed around them. All ships, prepare for synchronized pulse, she transmitted. Remember, we're not trying to rebuild the ancients' prison. We're just patching the holes. Sometimes the simplest solutions. 5 minutes to grid failure. The fleet hung ready, every ship's quantum arrays aligned precisely, prepared to inject reinforcing energy into the weakening dimensional barriers. They would only get one chance at this. 2 minutes. Sarah's hand hovered over the activation control. Around her, the fabric of space-time continued to unravel. Through the growing tears, she caught glimpses of what lay beyond. Geometries that hurt to look at, entities that existed in ways human minds couldn't process. 30 seconds. The markers, first light at dawn, suddenly announced. They're changing again. The mathematics. It's becoming clearer. The ancients didn't just leave us warnings. They left us a choice. A test. 10 seconds. Sarah understood then. The ancients hadn't just built a prison. They'd created a test for younger races. A challenge to see if they could overcome their differences and work together. To see if they could innovate rather than just rely on brute force technology. 5 seconds. The ancients were like us once, she transmitted to the fleet. They learned to overcome their pride. Now it's our turn. 3, 2, 1. All ships, acti gate. Thousands of quantum arrays fired simultaneously, their energy pulses following the precise mathematical sequence humanity had decoded. The modified harvesting beams struck the dimensional barriers just as they were about to fail completely. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the markers began to pulse in a new pattern. The tiers in space-time stabilize, then slowly began to close. The impossible geometries beyond them faded. Quantum grid stabilizing, Kai reported. Dimensional breaches sealing. The containment field. It's holding. A cheer went up across the fleet's communication channels. Sarah watched as the markers shifted from red back to their normal state. The ancient prison repaired not by recreating its original perfect construction, but by humanity's simple patch job. The markers are changing again. First light at dawn announced. New patterns emerging. The ancients, they're acknowledging us. We passed their test. In the days that followed, the collective would begin to decode these new messages. The ancients had left more than just warnings. They'd left knowledge for those who proved worthy of it. Knowledge that would require all races working together to understand. Sarah stood at her observation window, watching ships from 100 different civilizations running quantum scans on the repaired containment grid. Humanity's warning had been ignored, but their solution had saved everyone. More importantly, their example had shown the collective a new way forward. Sometimes the race that remembers its limitations, that still knows what it means to be vulnerable, has the most to teach those who have forgotten. The markers pulsed steadily across the galaxy, no longer a warning, but a reminder. The greatest strength lies not in power, but in wisdom. Not in technology, but in innovation. Not in pride, but in the willingness to learn. And somewhere, in dimensions beyond human understanding, the ancients' test continued, waiting for the next civilization ready to learn these crucial lessons.